I should say that there are many, many students out there who have graduated in the BSAS. I know that because I get a lot of calls from them. And you cannot be licensed in most of the states with a BSAS degree or a BAAS degree. You have to go on and get a professional degree. Now, what happens, there are some states that do allow a 4-year degree, including Wisconsin. So I've talked to students that say, well, you know, it's getting to the end of the year now, and I know that Illinois has stopped accepting 4-year degrees for licensure. What should I do? And is this a good time to talk about this, Mike?
Sure.
You want to continue with it? Because it relates to education. So what should I do? And the answer is there are 2 paths for you. Number 1, you can go ahead and continue your education and get a master's degree, which would be an additional 2 years in most schools, or SIU in Carbondale, Southern Illinois University in Carbondale, is offering a 1-year, 15-month Master of Architecture degree. It's an intensive degree, and it's all online.
Yeah.
You only have to attend, I believe, 2 sessions for a week, and they strategically schedule those sessions for a normal spring break time.
And there's a few of those around the country. I think there's one in Lawrence, I think.
Is that right? I didn't know about that.
I think so, and I think there's one at the BAC in
the Boston
Boston
Architectural College. Yeah.
And I know there's at least those 2, and I think
but
there's
the one
maybe
that's
a few
close by
others,
here is that I know about is SIUC, Southern Illinois University at Carbondale, and it's relatively easy to get into. You do not need a portfolio, for example, which you do at many other schools. The cost is $25,000 flat fee, which sounds like a lot of money, but if you compare it to a residency at another school for 2 years, and the fact that you're going to be losing income because you're not working during those 2 years, you're attending school full time, then it's really a bargain. So that's the one path to get the Master of Architecture degree. Now, what if you say, well, I can't go back to school, I don't have the money, I can't go to a school. First of all, they won't let me in because my grades were dismal in undergraduate school. So what do I do? Okay, here's what you do for the second path. You decide, you finish your IDP, and then you apply for the architectural registration examination. You take it, they'll let you take it, even though you don't have a professional degree. Pass the architectural registration examination, and asked to be licensed in one of the 21 states that still allows licensure with a BSAS or a BAAS 4-year degree. Wisconsin is one of those. They're very convenient to us here. I know there are people from all around the country. There's lots of other states. New York is one, California is one, where you don't need a professional degree. And it's kind of interesting to me to know that the largest states, with the exception of Illinois, which is a very large state, and we have lots of architects here, probably as many as New York does. But the largest states don't require the higher level degrees. And the reason for that, in my opinion, is that they need architects. They need architects more than some of the smaller states do. You know, the NCARB, the IDP program, first caught on in the southern states, the states where there are very few architects. Alabama, Mississippi, Texas, you know, some of the states that you wouldn't think have that many architects. And they didn't at the time, they of course do now. But they were the most restrictive states in terms of education. But the ones that are larger in general are the least restrictive. But going back to Wisconsin, in the case of Wisconsin, you would take the exam, pass it, ask Wisconsin to license you as an architect, and they will accept you because you don't need a master's degree. Then once you're licensed in Wisconsin, you can begin earning credits under what they call the Broadly Experienced Architect Program, and that's run by the National Council of Architectural Registration Boards, or NCARB, just like the IDP program is. So after 5 years of working, you can apply for licensure, or you can apply for what they call certification with NCARB. And certification allows you to practice in any state. So once you've achieved that certification, you can come back to Illinois and say you want to be licensed in Illinois, and they will grant it for you. because you have the required document, the certification that NCARB will give you after 5 years of practice. Now, the key is you have to practice under, the way it's currently set up, is you have to practice under an architect who is licensed in Wisconsin. Now, that's going to change, Mike. I mean, it's in about a year or so, NCARB is going to allow you to be practicing under any licensed architect, not one licensed in Wisconsin.
So you could do it from a different state.
So, well, you can do it from a different state. There are many, many architects in Illinois, for example, and Illinois is my state that I live in and have the most experience with. There are many architects licensed in Illinois who are also licensed in Wisconsin. So if you're working for a large firm, there's probably an architect in that firm that is licensed in Wisconsin. As long as you're working under their direction, you have to be working under their direction, then for 5 years, doesn't matter whether you're a resident of Wisconsin or whether you're working in Wisconsin, it has no relation to it.
So the Broadly Experienced Architect program is a very useful tool for the folks who are in that boat. But it's probably a harder process to do than just doing, like if you're at the beginning of this process, just getting the master's, get the education,
I would recommend
do the IDP, take the exam, and then...
The first path is the best way.
Right. But for those that just can't, as you were just saying, can't, just either the money isn't right or the situation isn't right, or you got 2 kids and you're working a job and you're trying to do a thing or whatever.
I've been called by people who are principals in large firms in Chicago that don't have master's degrees, and they say, "What do I do?" You know, I'm panicked. I have to be. They won't let me continue to be a partner unless I get licensed.
Yeah,
that's the only way to do it.
I've had a lot of people in my classes that way, and it's an interesting thing. So this is one sort of useful way to do it. But the reason I throw that little line in there is, be strategic about your planning in this process. Just because you can do it that way, I wouldn't necessarily assume that that's the smartest way for you to go. But for a lot of people, it's
what they call a workaround.
It's a workaround, yeah exactly. That's great.
I'm glad that it's there.
It's right, exactly.
But I should also mention that the current CEO of NCARB, Mike Armstrong, is a very strong advocate of letting 1,000 flowers bloom, as Jack Hartree used to say, my mentor. In other words, allow as many people as you can to become licensed architects. Don't set the standard so high that it's an elite profession. It becomes an elite profession that keeps out people that can contribute tremendously to the architectural profession, but would not normally be able to go through the standardized process.
Well, and as you say, like 7 years of school can be very, very expensive. Not earning income. So finding other ways to allow that to happen does make a lot of sense.
Right.
And it sounds like they've been very receptive to that, but it's still a bit of a slog. And
Mike is leading the way, and his board is supporting him in every step that he's taking. He's planning on. First of all, he was the inspiration for reducing the IDP by virtually a year. Instead of a 3-year process, it's now a 2-year process. He was the inspiration for that, along with his board, of course, that supported him. And he's also promoting a new major change to the Broadly Experienced Architect program, where you can earn those additional years of experience while you're working before you become licensed.
Right.
So you don't have to wait until after you're licensed to earn those additional years, which really will compress the whole process. And this is going to happen if the member boards support it. Everything has to be voted on by the 55 jurisdictions, and that occurs in, I believe it's June of every year when they have a big meeting. If the other 55 boards, the majority of the 55 boards support it, it's probably going to happen by next summer. That shortcutting of the Broadly Experienced Architect program.
So the workaround to the workaround.